The problem is, you may form the higher consciousness of your immortality purely mentally in the privacy of your room relatively easily. But as soon as you go out into the world, you fall back into your old habits. On returning to the lower physical world, man forgets his higher nature as though it were a dream. A bridge must be found to prevent the loss of consciousness. If you fail at something, you feel weak and desperate, even though you, as an immortal being, have an eternity of time at your disposal to learn and to try again. If other people cause you harm or offend you, you feel injured, although your true self is not affected by this kind of attacks. The little soul repeatedly feels violated, although it is inviolable. Such weaknesses you need to overcome mentally, in spirit, in your consciousness. It is beautiful if someone can always carry within himself lofty thinking. When people leave you, you feel lonely, although the higher self in his world has a multitude of spiritual friends and soulmates. You worry about the body and tomorrow's survival. This is wrong thinking, which you need to correct. For your immortal soul, it is better if your mortal shell lives shortly but rightly, instead of long but wrongly. One can get used to thinking about the grandeur of life as to food or drink. You continue to resort to worldly comforters like eating, drinking, possessions, amusements, or distractions, in a vain attempt to overcome your moods. Although, in principle, you know exactly that you will only make your recovery more difficult, because thereby you weaken your spirit instead of strengthening it. These examples show you need to design a strategy for the defense of your higher consciousness. You need to recognize and correct at once every thought and feeling that is not compatible with your dignity as immortal man. The first practical step towards the defense of the higher consciousness is to establish during the course of the day 3 pillars which give you support. We in Tebinisi start in the morning before we do anything else with a short meditation. In silence, we actually transform ourselves into eternal spiritual beings. We take the firm resolution to keep up this transformation during the day, which means to act not as material, but as spiritual beings in the world. For example, fearlessly, superior, joyfully, and selflessly. we consider the mistakes of the past days and develop a strategy to avoid them today. From this powerful position, we Thebenese descend down to the earthly life. But not only to fulfill our earthly obligations, but also with the higher target to actually and practically conform our transformation into immortals. We facilitate this task by remembering that we have to perform a short run only until we reach the next pillar at noon. During a storm, one should at least know the whereabouts of the longed-for harbor. At noon, all Thebenese takes a short break. We remind ourselves and confirm again that we are immortals and strive to appear as such in the world. Then we come already to the last run of the day, the second descent to the world in the afternoon. In the evening, we take another time for meditation. Again, we perform in silence the transformation. In addition, we give to ourselves an account of the proceedings of the day. Were we able to keep our resolutions? What mistakes did we make? How can we do better tomorrow? If you imitate this practice, you too may rest firmly on these three pillars. At least at these 3 times of the day, you really are a spiritual being. The runs in between are short and not too difficult to bridge. Gradually, you will learn to use the time in the world as well for the effective implementation of the transformation. The next spiritual exercise for the defense of the higher consciousness is to develop permanent vigilance. Your high position as an immortal, as a new man of the next step of evolution, is constantly at risk. Our ancestor, who began with a gigantic project to rise onto 2 legs, initially kept falling down again and again on his 4 paws. Likewise, we today are falling back over and over again to the familiar old patterns of vulnerability, fear, weakness, sadness, or egoism. This means the charioteer must not for a moment leave his horses unattended. He must intervene immediately and take countermeasures if one of them breaks out and threatens to throw the whole chariot out of its course. It should not be thought that, in his consciousness, an Arhat could lose sight of the guiding will even for an instant. He becomes a simple mortal if he does not always solemnly bear the chalice of achievement. The power of his heart becomes dormant as soon as he ceases to feel the hierarchic thread in his hand. In this realization of constant vigilance lies the uniqueness of an Ahad. But this solemnity is not easy in the confusion of the atmosphere. At stake is nothing less than the struggle of your higher existence for survival. The soul comes under the wheels when the horses prevail and elope. As in old times a sword fight was necessary for the defense of the physical personality, so today we must learn the spiritual martial arts in order to protect our supermundane life. That means you need to be aware at every moment of the danger of being thrown down from the high pedestal on which you have placed yourself. However, when your vigilance has ceased for a moment, and if you have fallen down, you can minimize the damage by immediately getting up again. You must make a habit of this permanent vigilance, like the animals, such as birds or mice, who constantly scent in all directions and are always on their guard against enemies. By changing your habits, you will actually change your personality. Here is an example. When does the envoy of a great king lose his position? When he has to visit disgusting, hostile to the spirit circumstances in order to reach the receiver of his master's message? No. When he has the misfortune to be thrown into prison by the receiver of the message? Not even then. A captivated ambassador still remains an ambassador. As long as you act as the representative of a higher power, you take part in its dignity, however the external circumstances might look like. The individual soul knows it is one of the sexless spiritual beings which come from higher spheres to redeem gross matter. Only when the ambassador loses the consciousness of his great task, when his will is broken, when he does not manage to summon the strength and the discipline to preserve the dignity of his office at every moment and in all circumstances, only then does he fall down to the level of those whom he was supposed to raise and to liberate. This he can avoid only by preserving the permanent, vigilant consciousness of his high position.